Let's try it with my mic on. Good afternoon, I'm Tracy Sinclair. It's been kind of a frantic afternoon here. Just, a lot going on, a lot of fun stories that we've got coming up in your Friday Potluck. And as I said, kind of get a mix of everything. You're never quite sure what you're going to get when you check out the Friday Potluck. But we do have a couple fun stories today. We're going to talk about some Valentine's Day, not only flowers, but some chocolates as well. And then we're also talking about a different kind of heart, Women's Heart Health, February's Heart Health Month. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We've got events coming up this weekend. You might want to stick around for that. And then we'll do a little bit of some serious stuff, some reports that came out this weekend. And of course, we are going to get Melissa Fry over here and do some weather because we do have some storms coming through the interior. So we just want to get everybody situated and having some fun for our Friday. We are going to start off with some fun, and that is Valentine's Day. I think a lot of us take it for granted when we place that order for flowers or chocolates. There is somebody on the other end of that that's putting in the work. And so today, Georgina Fernandez went out to talk to some of the people who are getting ready so the rest of us can enjoy the day.
So, day before Valentine's Day, how are you guys feeling?
We're kind of gearing up for the chaos that's going to happen here in the next 12 hours. But yeah, we're excited. This is kind of like our Super Bowl. So we're happy to just serve everybody.
How have you guys been kind of training them for your Super Bowl?
The crew is great. Everybody knows what they're doing, so they know where they need to be. And we have tons of pre-orders ready for pickup today and tomorrow. So we're just trying to get that ready right now.
And you're talking to me about like that chaos within those 12 hours. Does it kind of hit today and go until tomorrow, or is this like today and tomorrow it's just boom, boom, boom?
It's kind of actually started since the beginning of this week. So we start to pick up the week of Valentine's Day. This year it falls on a Saturday, which is really nice because it's a good date night. So today it's definitely going to be a lot busier, and tomorrow is definitely going to be a lot busier than the rest of the week has been. But yeah, we're ready.
Are you seeing that all like an uptake of people doing pre-orders this year?
I think the pre-orders have been about the same as we have in the previous years, but we tend to find that everybody is very last minute. And even though pre-orders have been open for about a month now, they always kind of wait till the last minute to do that.
And your kind of area of focus is the chocolates, the sweets of Valentine's Day.
Yeah, what about him?
That's your focus?
Yes, that's my focus. Yeah.
What's your favorite part about that?
I think just the creativity of it and getting to play with a medium that you can do all kinds of things with. So I think that's the best part about it.
When it comes to chocolates this year, do you guys see at all an increased cost with inflation?
There's definitely been an increase in price. There's been about 14 to 17% in increase. And then that doesn't include the 10 to 12% in tariffs that's on top of that. So it's definitely been a struggle, especially with the cocoa shortage coming out of Africa.
Is that new this year for you guys, or is this something you've been seeing for the last few years?
It hasn't been new. This is definitely something that has been happening for several years now, especially after COVID. It's just been really difficult to get chocolate in general. So,
how's that going to impact the business?
We just have to really plan ahead of time and really evaluate our previous year's sales and get all the inventory that we need for the year, or even at least for the next 6 months, so that way we are guaranteed the inventory that we need.
I know days like Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, those are kind of big holidays for you guys. That, I guess, shoulder season you guys aren't doing Mother's Day's orders and Valentine's Day's orders. Is it rough business, or do you guys feel like you still have a flow of customers coming in?
We have a really great local customer base. They still come in all the time, but we also manufacture and wholesale to the entire state of Alaska. So we're in almost every single Alaskan gift shop that you can think of. We're also on the cruise lines. We're up in, the Holland America Princess, lodges. So we keep busy all year round. There really is no downtime for us. Yeah.
But when Valentine's Day comes around, what's kind of that increase of customers you guys see?
There's definitely about a 30% increase just for that week of Valentine's. And then it does taper off a little bit until we get back into the tourist season, which is, Memorial Day.
And how are you guys just like, what's your mindset going into the next 12 hours? Are you like just taking deep breaths, being like, we got this?
No, I think we got it. I mean, this is, the crew, like I said, is fantastic, and they know where they need to be. So, yeah, I think we're ready.
So is today you guys just doing the final touches, or still kind of working and putting flower arrangements together? What's kind of the group today?
There are some items that we have that are super perishable. I mean, flowers being one of them. The chocolate dipped strawberries are another one. We only have them twice a year for Mother's Day and Valentine's. So this is something that we have to do kind of last minute because of how perishable they are. But yeah, we're all set to go.
And anything else you want to tell me about your preparation going on today?
No, I think that's it.
That is kind of amazing there that they are so busy, and she calls it their Super Bowl for the year, which I do love. So anybody that is watching us on Facebook and on YouTube, we welcome you, and hopefully you can join us for these. As I said, we're doing these on Friday. We're going to take a quick break here. So those of you that are watching on our streaming platforms should see a commercial. We'll just be standing by here for just a second. And welcome back. Thank you again so much for the people joining us on Facebook and YouTube. We also are streaming on our live stream, so we really want to thank everybody that is there. We're just trying to, we've got a couple different streams going on, and so it was just got a little confusing for a second. But also coming up this weekend, not only is tomorrow Valentine's Day, but on Sunday is a celebration of Chinese New Year. And it is a specific celebration. Lunar New Year is on the 17th of February this year. But we sat down with Mei Zhang with the Alaska Chinese Association to find out what was happening with their celebration that's happening this Sunday.
Well, joining me now today is Mei Zhao with the Alaska Chinese Association, and Chinese New Year is coming up quickly, and this is a special year for the Alaska Chinese Association. Mei, tell us a little bit about what makes this year so special.
So this is the 4,000-year tradition being alive in Alaska for 50 years for the community. Also, this year we have introduced a line dance team from out of state, from Oregon, White Lotus. They are national winners, number 3 for the high pole line dance. It's really stunning. Yeah.
That sounds super exciting.
Yeah.
What is your personal favorite part about this year?
This year we have a lot of digital and high-tech creation by the community. We made a lot of 3D prints for everybody to enjoy and see the heritage in life. I personally made some videos and music so that we can let the music and the vibe speak for itself. Yeah, to spread the joy.
Yeah, absolutely. Why do you think it's important to share the Chinese culture and really reinforce that for the younger generations?
So we all came to the world differently. Everyone developed their own way. Being Chinese is a tag that it's not my choice, it's because of my family. I feel that's something I can offer to the table that give me a special perspective and a special experience. It's similar to how I work, with my employers in the past, that, share whatever you can bring to the table. I think all cultures have their special thing. One special, a special thing about Chinese culture is it's alive. So you will have the Vietnamese version, the Japanese version, Malaysian version, and they're all authentic. They adopted maybe hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, and it's living within their community, and it's part of their community. So now we have this culture in Alaska, and it's going to be within our community.
Absolutely. Tell us a little bit about the event that's coming up. What should people know?
So we will have basically a celebration. We call it a Jubilee, Golden Jubilee. We try to make it fancy, so we call it gala, but it's a celebration. So it starts at 12 p.m. from 12 to 4 at Diamond High, February 15th. We offer meal as part of, in the ticket. We are not-for-profit, so we're not trying to make money. We're just trying to make it sustainable. And then bring the happiness, because Chinese New Year is very similar to Thanksgiving. It's a time you go back to your family, having a grand meal. So we try to share the joy with the community. We also ask for a lot of, in the past 50 years, we've asked all these Chinese restaurants or local restaurants to offer us food and beverage to, at an affordable price, so that our community can enjoy it.
What are some of the traditional foods and meals that are typically served during Chinese New Year?
So we would have dumplings, and then, to be honest, every region has their own way.
Yeah.
So there's no one way. To have dumpling is good, because dumpling resembles the golden nuggets in the Asian time. So it's a good fortune. But then you can have whatever you want, actually. In the past, I had pizza. I think it's good too.
Hey, everyone loves pizza, right?
Yeah.
So this year is the year of the horse. I see you brought some items to share. Do you want to tell us a little bit about some of these items here?
Yes. So this year is the year of horse. And then because the traditional Chinese calendar, they use the elements. So this is a year of the fire horse. And so you can see the design here. This is designed by Alaskan 10 years old Alaskan, my daughter, Scarlett. Mm-hmm. And then we printed out of 3D print. And it's difficult to ship things to Alaska. And then we want to share the joy and to make more people enjoy it. So this is made out of a traditional design that's a red paper cut, handmade by people. And we couldn't do it. So we're doing 3D print. And then it's open source. Anyone can go online to download it on the MakerBoard.
Wow, it's beautiful, very intricate.
Thank you. And this is, in Chinese, this is two fish. So fish means abundance. This is a fortune. A lot of people may recognize it. You'll see it in a lot of restaurants. So this is good fortune and abundance always coming to your life. That's why you have the fish. This is a request by my mom. And then we made some small horses for people to enjoy.
Oh, cute.
Yeah. This is the horse with the golden nuggets, which looks very similar to a dumpling, and the fortune cookie. And then we made this golden horse for this new year.
Wow.
Yeah. The other thing I want to mention is in Chinese, we love puns. So on top of horse means as soon as possible. That's why you see this little fortune. This is a bookmark made by my daughter. So you see a little fortune on top of a horse that's getting lucky as soon as possible.
Oh, wow. Your daughter is super talented. How old did you say she was?
She's 10 years old.
Wow, and she designed all of that. That is incredible.
Yeah, so we also leveraged AI, She would have an idea, we would discuss about it, and then we try to design. The drawing is not perfect, so I'm not showing. Right. But yeah, the concept is important.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so everything we do is because somebody did their good job. And then on top of that, we're adding a little bit more so then we can spread the joy.
Absolutely. All right, well, is there anything else that you'd like to share about the event or Chinese New Year in general, or anything else you'd like people to know?
Yeah, so I want to mention two things. One is this is a film stand for it resembling the traditional design of a lion, because we'll have the lion dance this year. This lion dance performance this year is absolutely great. I strongly suggest anyone to look at it. The other thing I want to mention is I personally, I enjoyed and learned so much by working with all the volunteers and people supporting us. I learned, because I want to support our community, and we don't have enough resources, so I learned to make music, I learned to make videos, and I want to say thank you, and this is my employer, Alaska Pipeline Service Company, and as many of the oil and gas companies, they sponsored our event. Because this is 50 years of, you can think about it as a relay race, so we're the last push. We had BP, ConocoPhillips, Santos, and now Alaska all supported us or supporting us. And we have a lot of local friends and local restaurants, local businesses. They've supported us for 50 years. And even KTUU, you guys are supporting us. Thank you.
Very cool. All right, May, thank you so much. We appreciate you coming in to chat about the Chinese New Year with us.
Thank you.
And so that is this Sunday at Diamond High School from noon until 4 o'clock. Again, as we just heard, there'll be cultural performances, dances, food, some local vendors, and you can go to the Alaska Chinese Association Facebook page for more information on that. Other things going on, as we said, it is Valentine's Day. And this weekend, so there is a Sweetheart Skate at Westchester Lagoon, and that is from 5:30 until 9 on Saturday. Looks like a lot of fun. Bring your skates and your headlamps, because let's face it, it's going to get a little bit dark out there. And we're still seeing our sunset after 5:30 in the evening, so it will be lovely. St. Valentine's Day, get out there and enjoy the Sweetheart Skate. And prom, 1988. Oh my gosh, let's see. That's a little bit after me. My prom was actually 1982, so a little bit later. But prom, this is down at 49th State Brewing. You can grab those vintage clothes. We do love the 80s, and head to the dance. So much fun. $20 in advance, $30 at the door. Prom 1988. That definitely sounds like it could be a little bit of fun if you're expecting to get out and, just kind of enjoy the day. Well, one of the things that we've been talking about is the fact that not only are we talking hearts and flowers for Valentine's Day, but we're also talking about heart health, because February is Heart Health Month in America. Not just, of course, because of Valentine's Day, but it's an opportunity to talk about heart health. And the American Heart Association specifically targets women during this month with the Go Red for Women campaign. I was just down at the Go Red for Women luncheon down at the Denina Center. Surprisingly, cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer in women, and that's why cardiologist Dr. Linda Ireland says knowing your risk factor is so important. Our producer Jennifer Summers sat down with Dr. Ireland to talk about this issue.
What are some of the key things that we can do now to prevent changes in our lifestyle?
Yeah, so prevention is really key, and it's just really understanding ahead of time what your risk is, right? So we can't reach people that don't come to us, and especially with women in heart disease and the Go Red thing that's coming up. I like to say that remind people that 1 in 3 women actually die of heart disease, more than any cancer combined, and we can't reach those women if they don't know the risk, right? And 50% of the women know the risk, less than 50%. So if we don't shine a spotlight on the awareness, so I think prevention starts first with awareness. If we can raise awareness of what people's risks are, then we can get them in and we can get them on the right path, whether it be a lifestyle path, healthy lifestyle, or it needs to be treatment of underlying conditions that people don't know that they have.
Yeah, what am I ignoring? That was the first thought when you were talking, was what signs am I ignoring right now that could mean I should go talk to a professional?
Yeah, it's really important. And I like to divide that when I see people in the hospital versus when I see them in the clinic. And I think they're equally important, right? I think the warning signs not to ignore if something happens abruptly from your home or you're out and you get abrupt sensation of chest pressure or tightness or a sweaty feeling or breathlessness that happens abruptly, which is out of the norm for you, you need to go to the ER immediately and seek help. You don't wait, all that stuff, because what we like to say in the cardiology field is time is muscle. If a heart attack happens, as soon as you can get to the ER and open up the artery, the less muscle damage that happens. And a lot of times people ignore those symptoms. And on the flip side, when you are talking about what you see with people coming into the clinic, I say those are not the abrupt heart attacks, but those are the subtle things that you say, well, when you're able to exercise or when you're able to walk, but suddenly you push on the gas a little bit and go moderate pace, and you feel something that doesn't feel right, and then you slow down and it goes away. That sensation of pushing on the gas and then slowing down and goes away means that there's something that's starting to happen to kind of come and get an evaluation from a clinical standpoint. So there's outpatient and inpatient that I think the risk awareness of symptoms are important, and then understanding the risk of what gets people there is also important.
And taking control of your health, of course. When we go back to the prevention, what are key things that we do that are wrong?
Well, I think I don't think it's really doing wrong. I think it's just not being aware. And I think the more we can make ourselves aware of these risks, the better. And it's the standard. I think there's things that are modifiable and there's non-modifiable risks. I think knowing your family history is really important. Like, we can't change that. That's a baseline risk factor that you're going to have, and we can't do anything about it. But then the silent things that you don't know if you don't get screened for is high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol. All of those things are things that are happening that doesn't necessarily cause symptoms a lot of the times, that you need to get screened for those. Smoking, of course, as everybody knows, or everybody should know, smoking is terrible. And then just the regular physical exercise, what we like to say of 30 minutes a day of aerobic activity, is important. So those are a lot of the risks that we talk about. But it's just kind of knowing where you are. And there's risk calculators that are out there that you can put in your numbers, and you can see where you're at, to see where you're at in your numbers, where that you should go and where you should pay more attention to.
Another lifestyle factor is sleep, which surprised me. I was like, well, I can't help my sleep, really. How does that factor into your heart?
Yeah, so sleep is a big deal because, the recommendations are for 7 to 8 hours of sleep. It really affects your cortisol and your circadian rhythms, and it just increases inflammation and everything that goes along with it. So sleep habits are a really important thing to get into check. And, women often struggle with that too when they get into the postmenopausal years with hot flashes and all that other stuff. So that's why it's just really important to really understand the different life cycle parts, especially pretty passionate about women this month because it's a pretty bright light that American Heart Association shines on us. And, I like to say that there's two big stressors in women's lives that they don't sometimes often recognize. Pregnancy is one of them. So when you're pregnant, that's a life stressor. That's a stress test for the heart, right? And when you are pregnant, there's a couple things that happen during pregnancy that people should be aware of if they have gestational diabetes or hypertension. And that carries a lifelong cardiovascular risk, not just when you're pregnant. And then the natural hormonal shifts that happen when you're in your perimenopausal and menopausal years, when you lose your estrogen and progesterone, cardiometabolic changes happen while that is happening. So the cardioprotective effects of that go away. And then you need to really check your lipid panel again, your blood pressure again, because all of those things change once you go into your postmenopausal year. So those are things that people just aren't aware of a lot of times, and we don't really get to shine a light on it such a great stage that the American Heart Association has given us in February.
Yeah, so that is Dr. Linda Ireland, and as I said, I just came from the Go Red for Women luncheon, talked a lot about basically knowing your own body, being your own advocate, and this is a good month for women in particular to know their numbers, blood pressure, cholesterol, all of these risks that are factors in heart disease. And so that is good advice, and I think hopefully everybody gets out and gets it checked, because better to know at this point than not to know.
And it was really cool to see all the women in our newsroom wearing red today, of course. It's an issue across generations, and it was interesting to hear that expert's perspective on the different life events that affect your heart health.
Yes, and how if you have something that occurs during pregnancy, like gestational diabetes, even after you're pregnant, the pressure on your body does not go away. Yes. And that's always a factor. And I found that very interesting. They mentioned that at the luncheon today. Also menopause and how menopause affects, because all women are going to go through it eventually. Joining me, of course, is Augusta McDonald. We kind of veered off the topic that you're actually here to talk about. But this week we got a kind of massive release of documents about that plane crash that happened just a little more than a year ago as the plane was going from Unalakleet to Nome, and that painful crash that killed 10 people over on Western Alaska. I was one of the people reporting on that from here, and it's just devastating. But we got a lot of information. What were those documents that came out this week?
Sure. So that the release of the National Transportation Safety Board's docket, as they call it, is a very routine release of subject matter expert information and data that the NTSB is using in their investigation, and what they're trying to determine is the probable cause of that crash. The final report or the final decision isn't expected until early summer. Our contact at NTSB Alaska, Clint Johnson, told me this week, so still several more months of work, but they do in advance open up this docket of information so that the public can see the work that's going into the investigation into what happened. Lots of folks, of course, fly on regional carriers like Bering Air 445 in Alaska all the time. There's multiple regional carriers across the state, and so when you see something like that happen, where it seems like a business as usual sort of day, and then you lose 10 lives, everyone does want to know what happened and how do we prevent this from ever happening again, which is another thing the NTSB looks at and gives recommendations into in their final report. And
I know one of the things that also we've been discussing this week is the fact that there are several families, I think 4, that have lawsuits now in progress. But you spoke to a family that had a different viewpoint.
Yes, so there are 3 new lawsuits representing 4 families total that have been filed against the regional carrier Bering Air that was operating Flight 445. And they're accusing the airline of wrongful death, negligence, and listing out lots of reasons for that, of course, in their complaints. But there were 10 families affected that day, and yesterday I spoke with a man, Jason Ryan, whose wife was on that plane. Her name was Leanne Ryan, and she was a teacher in Wasilla. If you're from the area, you might know of her. In fact, after she died, she was honored by the legislature because she had such an impact on the education community across the state for a long time. She had her whole career in that region, retired, and then continued mentoring rural teachers, which is why she was on that flight in Northwest Alaska. She had just been with a class talking to them about STEM. She was a science teacher. So very special lady, and what Jason told me surprised me as well, but he wanted to share his story and his perspective. So here we go.
She's the love of my life.
Jason and Leanne Ryan were married for almost 30 years.
Our families went to the same church. And then the only time I've been out of Alaska is I served in the Marine Corps. And I came back and I was sitting in church and I was like, Mom, who's that? Dang, she growed up.
Her legacy continues in the lives of her children, her students, and the young teachers she mentored throughout rural Alaska.
Her visit to Unalakleet, well, she liked doing STEM projects with the kids when she could. So she made slime. And that was her last Facebook post, was making slime.
Jason Ryan says he won't be joining in civil action against Bering Air, as several families now seek damages for wrongful death after the flight was reported overweight the day it crashed. The fiancé of Flight 445 pilot Chad Antle was interviewed by NTSB investigators last spring. In a transcript released on Wednesday, she told them, quote, he has had issues with them in the past where he had complained about his flights being overweight, and basically his concerns were disregarded. She said Antle had made similar complaints to her for the year she knew him. Bering Air attorneys have previously told us they're fully participating in the NTSB investigation. In documents released Wednesday, investigators also report discrepancies in the weight of fuel reported to be on board multiple Bering Air flights the week before the crash. I asked aviation expert Colleen Mondor how a pilot could misreport the amount of fuel on board an aircraft.
Essentially, the pilot is deciding that they don't want to write down as much weight as they have because they don't want the record to reflect how heavy the aircraft was. That would be a general reason why a pilot would do that intentionally. Again, we cannot know the intentions of the pilot involved, however.
Jason, Ryan, and the other 9 families now finding paths forward without their loved ones.
She's the love of my life and the only woman I've ever been with. And I will not dishonor her by hurting those communities in any way. Period.
Augusta McDonald, Alaska's news source. He was so measured in his response, Jason, and you know, he knew how important rural Northwest Alaska was to Leanne and how critical regional carriers like Berrying Air are for mail, for medicine, for transportation in the region. And so his concern is, well, if there is civil action on an airline that actually has one of the safest records in the state, they hadn't had a fatal crash since 1990, Berrying Air. The consequences of that were more critical to him than you know, the effect of a civil suit. So lots of different perspectives here. It's, you know, each family really having to grapple with how they're going to move forward with this individually.
And then today, are you working on anything to follow along on this?
Yes, so we'll have some new reporting in our 4, 5, and 6 o'clock shows today. I talked to Colleen Mondor again, who was in that last piece, about some more details. You know, there's a lot of documents, and we're kind of processing them and reporting what we can as we understand it without trying to get ahead of things. And of course, we are not going to determine probable cause in our reporting. We're just looking at some of the things that are in the data, the factual data, and trying to understand them. So I talked to her a little bit about just the complexity of trying to determine what happens in a day leading up to the decision to fly a Part 135 aircraft like that Cessna flight, Flight 445. They have their own unique and complex set of factors. The pilots are very close to the decision making and to the passengers. It's just unique. So we're going to look at that a little bit today.
Okay, excellent. Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Augusta McDonald. As she said, we will have more tonight at 4, 5, 6, and probably the 10 as well, because this is a big story. Also today, of course, we are on the verge of a partial government shutdown.
Yes, we are.
Little bit of that is going on. And so Josiah Pike, our morning digital person, sat down with one of our DC Bureau reporters to find out the latest in political news.
And with no deal in sight, lawmakers home for President's Day recess. The Department of Homeland Security is set to run out of funding Saturday, setting the U.S. into another partial government shutdown. Now, joining us now is Alaska's news source Washington correspondent Katrin Asaf. Katrin, DHS is the only department set to close. If and when they run out of funding, what does this mean for the average American?
Yeah, so it's important to remember that there are a lot of sub-agencies that fall under the DHS umbrella, and really there are 2 that if and when DHS shuts down would be the most impactful to Americans. The big one is TSA. So think of how often you catch a flight or you go to the airport. 95% of TSA employees are considered essential, meaning they will keep working, but they're not getting paid. And what we saw in previous shutdowns is there were staffing shortages as folks were calling out sick or they were missing shifts because they were working without pay. So we can expect to say airport delays and issues with TSA if this were to be a long shutdown. The other big one is FEMA, of course, which deals with disaster relief. This shutdown would disrupt the allocation of funds to states as they try and recover from natural disasters. We look back at that January winter storm that targeted much of the United States. So this is a pretty critical time for both of those agencies.
And turning to the first inflation report of 2026, which came as actually some positive news for consumers, what do these latest readings tell us?
So it showed us that inflation actually cooled in January. It wasn't just the temperatures that were dropping, it was also inflation as well. It only rose about 0.2% up from December. That number is lower than what economists were initially expecting. So this is certainly good news for consumers. The 2 biggest factors on that number is actually housing costs as well as the cost of food items, including groceries. So those were the 2 biggest things that economists were looking at to get these factors. And this is important because affordability has been a huge issue for the Trump administration. It's something they've been pushing and working on, and also for both parties ahead of the midterm elections. Affordability has been something that they are focusing on for 2026 and will continue to be important moving forward.
And President Trump is in North Carolina today, speaking to troops and military families at Fort Bragg. Katrin, what do we know about the visit and what did the president say?
So the purpose of this visit, according to the president, was to highlight the special service members that were involved in the capture of Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela on January 3rd. So not only was this addressed to troops and military families, but it was also a way for him to actually meet with some of those who were involved, the pilots, and have those conversations. We saw during the speech that he touted the might of the U.S. military. He said, quote, "We are feared," when talking about the United States on the world stage. But again, ahead of those midterms that are so critical coming up in just a few months, he's been traveling a lot to some of these states that are going to be really important in those elections, including, of course, North Carolina. And so for many attendees, they said that, yes, this felt like a speech, but also in some way it felt like a political rally as well when he was meeting with those troops.
All right, Alaska's News Source Washington correspondent, Katrin Asaf, thanks very much for the good reporting.
And as we've been talking about, tomorrow, of course, is Valentine's Day. Earlier in this program, we got to talk to a florist, but of course, flowers and chocolate go hand in hand, so we had to check that out as well.
And how long have you been doing flowers for?
Been doing flowers for about 15 years.
That's a while. What got you into it?
I'm a girl dad, so kind of got into doing flowers for them and then just kind of stick with it, yeah.
Oh. What's your favorite thing about doing flowers?
Just kind of the representation of like who you are, I guess. With the flowers, you can do so many different things. There's all kinds of different ways to arrange flowers, and then you could take roses and change them from what they actually look like into something completely different.
So there's this art form behind it.
Art form, correct, yeah.
And what's your favorite thing about Valentine's Day and, making this art?
The fact that we get a whole bunch of flowers to play with, and create all kinds of things. I mean, this is a massive heart with 75 flowers on it, so yeah, it's pretty fun.
Valentine's Day definitely brings some chaos for folks in your industry. What's the chaos looking like this week?
It's been pretty much the entire week. We picked these up on Sunday. We've got about 5,000 flowers in our cooler, and then we picked them up on Sunday, went through them. It took me from 10 in the morning to 7 at night just to prep them to go into the cooler.
And when it comes to flowers, what's the increase you guys saw with inflation costs this year?
So flower sales or flower inflation, prices are up about 15% this year. And it's really just the tariffs and just kind of what the market is showing. The tariffs are about 10%, and that's actually added on to the 15%. So it's a pretty significant jump.
And have you guys seen an increase also just shipping flowers? I think you mentioned they were coming from South America?
Yeah, so we get them from a wholesaler here. So we get ours from Cedars and then a couple of them from Alaska Wholesale Flower Market. And they upfront that cost, but obviously they pass it on to the customers. And the shipping is still pretty much the same.
And what's like your specialty when it comes to flowers?
I constantly grow and learn with things. So I like to do just main arrangements. I actually do floral arrangement classes as well actually I've been all over the country doing them, so yeah.
And that was DJ Literal. Yeah, just beautiful flowers there, just so lovely. We are going to talk in just a few minutes with Chief Meteorologist Melissa Fry about what we're going to expect for the weekend weather, because we've got some storms across parts of the state. But before we get there, we do want to talk a little bit about some financial stuff. As it's the potluck, so you're going to get a little bit of everything when you come in. And a lot of Americans, of course, are carrying a little more or sometimes a lot more debt than they'd like. And it makes it pretty difficult to have that all-important emergency savings fund.
Just 19% of Americans say they ended 2025 with a bigger emergency savings nest egg than they had at the beginning of last year. And that group is mostly higher income Americans, people who make $100,000 a year or more. As for the other group, they are more likely to have nearly 40% more credit card debt. Stephen Cates with Bankrate says 18% of the people surveyed admitted that they never had any emergency savings at all last year, and they were mostly more low-income households.
They are ones who, are struggling. They are on the precipice of, any kind of, little bit of a hurdle becoming a crisis, going further into debt. Many of those people already have and are carrying debt.
Kate says Bankrate found that income growth is the key to success, even beyond having enough in emergency savings. So that means taking steps this year to increase your income in order to build up that nest egg. So that could be a new job, a new skill set you can market, a side hustle, or asking for a raise.
We're in a bit of a tricky job market right now. Hiring is very slow, but people can think about this in a long game. What are the skills that you can build today that's going to help you next year, in the next few years? Can you pick up additional work or additional hours? Can you start to scope out what a new job might look like?
He says, think of it as, how do I build the skills now to get to a higher income threshold next year? And while you're doing that, making sure you are planning to chip away or eliminate any big debts. With this Watching Your Wallet, I'm Sasha Bray.
And of course, all important, that emergency fund that all of us should have. And as I said, a lot of Americans I know are struggling with more debt than they would like. But we're going to switch topics because we have brought over our chief meteorologist, Melissa Fry. We've got some stormy conditions in parts of the state.
Yes, yeah, this situation that we have is really one storm that's going to make its way from the Bering Sea across the state. Big widespread impacts. It has a lot of moisture with it and just strength when it comes to wind. So varying degrees of impacts depending on where you are, but we'll try and run through those and let you know what to expect. The biggest concern is snow and winds. We do have a first alert weather day for tomorrow for Fairbanks and the interior. Again, a first alert weather day is just simply our way of saying, hey, heads up, pay attention. This is going to be a little different than what you've been experiencing. And for Fairbanks specifically, this will likely be the most snow that you've seen with a single storm in about a month. So that is pretty significant. Winter storm watch is in effect from late this evening, and that's going to continue through Sunday. We do have 2 rounds of snow. The heaviest is likely on Saturday, 4 to 8 inches of snow across the interior, followed up by an additional 2 to 4 inches of snow as we head into Sunday. Now that's just the interior. Looking at the satellite and radar, you probably don't need to be a meteorologist to tell where this storm is. We've got that big area of high pressure in the northern Pacific. Those are clockwise winds, but then we have that stream of moisture. That white you see is the cloud cover, and that's what's pushing in here across the Bering Sea and is prompting those weather alerts. So blizzard warnings in effect for the second storm this week for the Kuskokwim Delta up into the Yukon Delta. We also have winter storm warnings. You can see those watches have now been upgraded. Then we have winter weather advisories in effect. Separately in southeast, we also have a high wind watch because also for the second time this week, once this storm makes its way through western Alaska, the interior and south central, it will also move into southeast as well. Peak wind gusts today have been nothing too extreme, not the 80 miles per hour like we were seeing earlier this week, but still ramping up there in ADAC to 56 miles per hour, 43 in Unalaska and in St. Paul. And you can see breezy winds all the way up the west coast. Even the slopes still experiencing strong wind with temperatures sitting at about 30 below. That has been bringing that wind chill value to between 60 and 70 below zero. Yeah, that is cold. You can get frostbite in as little as 5 minutes under those conditions. So here is that storm. On this map, the purple is snow and the green is rain. And you can see that is mostly snow here as you head from the Kuskokwim Delta all the way up through Norton Sound, Seward Peninsula. This is now 5:30 tomorrow morning. And you can see it's just beginning to push into the western interior, into south central. Look how fast, though, that came and went. Here we are not even 24 hours later, and that storm is already into southeast. So that is a unique thing with this storm. We've been watching that all week. It's going to come and go very quickly, but because of sort of that punch it's going to pack, it will drop, again, some significant snowfall totals. And then this is that second round I was talking about. You can see that snow pushing through the interior. Again, not much to write home about, but it will be on top of everything we've seen. And there it is as we head into early next week. This is not deja vu. This isn't on a loop. This is a whole separate storm. So this will be the third storm this week, now pushing out about 8 days since the one we saw last Monday to bring significant conditions to western Alaska. So it's just one after another. So looking at those snowfall totals, again, this is just tonight through tomorrow morning. It's already really pretty significant in Nome and in that Norton Sound region, but just beginning to show up in Fairbanks and in Anchorage. And then you can see as the day progresses, we start to see those snowfall totals climb, and then that second round pushes through the interior, really boosting those snowfall snowfall totals in Fairbanks. So that is why we do have a first alert weather day for Fairbanks specifically, because of the snowfall totals and the change from what you have been seeing recently. But even here in the Anchorage area and into the valley, I'm still expecting between 2 and 5 inches of snow. So again, it is something, and you will likely need to get those shovels out. The good news is, though, it's falling on the weekend. So if you don't have to, get your kids to school or get to work, you can spend your weekend shoveling. Isn't that what you wanted to do this weekend? The one other thing I wanted to point out is, we take a lot of time looking at computer models and just how do they compare to each other. And what's unique about this storm is how much in agreement they are. I don't know that I've seen this much agreement with a particular storm here in a couple months. So that is kind of nice. You can see all models projecting about 2 inches of snow for Anchorage. I do expect a little bit more on the north and east sides of town, and then also for the hillside. And then this is also a lower snowfall ratio. I think we could get a little bit more. So that's why I'm saying more like 4 inches of snow. And then into the interior, this is the Fairbanks comparison.
A little more typical with your models.
Yeah, it's a little more spread out. So you can see the purple, that's the Canadian model, down as low as 2 inches of snow, all the way up to the RPM and the Euro, which are pushing close to 6 inches of snow. But the thing that they are in agreement with is the timing. You can see no one disagrees that the timing this is going to start Saturday morning, continuing into Sunday, and then we'll get that second little push as we head into Sunday afternoon. So again, a lot of warnings because of these impacts from snow and wind. It's blowing snow for the blizzard warning for the Kuskokwim Delta, the Yukon Delta region into St. Lawrence Island. Winter storm warnings continue for Norton Sound, those Nulato Hills, Seward Peninsula, and the western interior. You can see up to a foot of snow combined with those heavy winds for you. Still dealing with some cold weather as you head up to the slope through early tomorrow morning. And then through the interior, this is now what, again, was just upgraded to a winter storm warning. The difference between a watch and a warning is a watch is, hey, there's the potential for this to come, but it's not necessarily imminent. We're still waiting for those ingredients to come together. We often describe this like you're going to bake a cake and you have the ingredients on the counter, but you have not put them together. A warning is those ingredients are in the mixer, they're mixing, and it's gonna happen. We know this is imminent. And so once we know that those ingredients are all in place, then the National Weather Service upgrades that to a warning.
Okay,
So
that's an interesting way to look at it. I never thought of it as all the ingredients are there. They're just haven't made the cake yet. It's not in the bowl.
Yes.
We're not mixing it up. And you might, because something might change where
Right.
I'm not going to make an apple cake. I'm going to make a plain vanilla. And
Yes.
so it might go down or might go up a little bit at that point.
Right. Yeah. Anytime you see watch, I think of it as like watch out. Watch means watch out. Heads up, this may be coming. Warning, it's here. It's time to pay attention and make sure you're doing what you need to do to stay safe.
Yeah. Okay, so first alert weather day tomorrow.
Yes.
In the interior in Fairbanks.
Yes, but even though this is a little tricky thing is that even though Fairbanks is where we have first alerted you, just because of the significance of it, doesn't mean that we're not getting snow in Anchorage. We are, and also Western Alaska dealing with some very severe weather as well.
Yeah, busy week. It has been.
Yeah, just keeps on coming.
It does.
Yeah.
I worked this last weekend with Bailey Braun, and just the number of warnings and watches and advisories across the state,
It was a lot.
in the north and across the West Coast in particular, it was a lot. So we're still watching those. Thank you very much for joining us. I know you've got a busy day out there. So she's going to run off, and we're pretty much done with our Friday potluck. We just wanted to jump on and show off a little bit of some of the fun things going on this weekend here in South Central, and of course, as I said, some of the big news stories. Valentine's Day tomorrow, and then next week on the 17th, it is the Lunar New Year. It is also the start of Ramadan. It is a solar eclipse and Mardi Gras. So a lot happening next Tuesday. We'll keep you up to date on all of those things. Thank you so much for joining us here on Alaska's News Source.